They're expanding tonight. Haven't gone in full-fledged yet, but certainly an expansion. Robert, thanks. Robert Sherman live in Tel Aviv. Let's go to David Dezso now, the former Green Beret who joins us. And, you know, pick up on that point first, and then I want to talk about the expansion of the ground activity in Gaza tonight. The idea that with all of this heavy bombardment from the IDF going in, again, hitting hundreds of targets per night, Hamas can still get some rockets out. Does that tell you that they're more softening up, so to speak, is needed?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is that Iran has their hands all over this with technology, and they usually bring that to the battlefield through their proxies. And so what we're going to see is, while we didn't expect them to last this long compared to 2021's attacks, they do have a more sophisticated capability this time, but also knowing that this attack on Israel was way more sophisticated and complex. So they knew well ahead of time that they were going to be engaged, they were going to take hundreds of hostages, and that was going to create a different kind of terror event for this. So I think it just shows that they're planning in connection to Iran and being able to sustain a little bit. They're going to have a lot of logistical concerns real quick, but they still maintain rockets that can reach Tel Aviv for sure.
All right. Now, on the
second part.
Oh, no, go ahead. The second part is what? Go ahead, David.
The second part of the shaping operation is, you know, this is a very, you guys have hit on this a lot, which is it's very complex. And shaping and softening the targets are everything before you go in with ground troops. The other thing you want to also capture is, you know, speed and surprise of attack, right? So while they're signaling more is coming, you also don't want to signal too much. Otherwise, you're going to walk into a fortified position that's even more ready for you. And so what I would bet with Israel and their plan, while they may be communicating certain things, I'd also say don't forget that the surprise element is a critical component to warfare.
Okay, so whatever we're seeing now, and again, they've telegraphed, announced, and shown us pictures of this quote-unquote expansion of ground operations tonight in Gaza is nothing compared to what we're going to see. Is that your point in terms of the surprise element, and what might that look like?
Well, I think you just have to, you know, number one, surprise element, but number two, when they do fully go in, they're going to have an element to the north to deal with and a global threat with Hezbollah. So what we're going to see is things spark up, more attacks on the U.S., more attacks on Israel from other sides. So it is not just a simple Gaza Strip invasion. It's way more complex than that. And that's a component that they're definitely weighing and internationally as well.
All right, a couple things back to the maps once again here to talk about Iran, which you've brought up a few times in this conversation already with the attacks on U.S. troops and then the response that we saw last night from the United States with the airstrikes in Syria. You look at the American troops that have been hurt in attacks, so we're looking at some of this that we've seen in Syria. We're looking at some of this that we've seen in Iraq, but that's not it. There have been attempted attacks all over the region, these numbers coming from the Department of Defense, and the U.S. did respond once. Will there be more? Last night, is that just the start of it, of a back and forth here between the U.S. airstrikes and Iran-affiliated groups across the region?
I think it's important to remember that Iran's top three goals are to preserve power for their own regional power, project power through proxies, and deter outside influences in the region. And so what they typically do, it's not a tit-for-tat kind of thing. They will take our warning, but they're still going to run their plan. So while we bombed an ammunition warehouse, they're trying to kill U.S. soldiers and service people. So it's a very different distinction of how our bombing raids will occur. I think as they escalate, obviously, we will have decisions to make, and the administration has to figure that out very quickly. But at any sense, if they could have killed more troops or done more damage in Syria and Iraq, they would have. They're not holding back just because we gave them a warning from our administration.
All right, David, thank you. Good to talk to you again. David Dezso, he was a Green Beret for a number of years and knows of what he speaks. We'll have you back on. Thanks again for today.
Thanks,
all right, more coverage to come of what's happening.